Da Kim stood at the window of his empty penthouse. The lights of Seoul Horizon Colony spread out below him like stars. He had everything a man could want. His tech company had just sold for billions. His smart home systems kept most of the space stations and moon bases running. At 35, he could buy almost anything. But Day felt hollow inside. "Another drink, sir?" asked his home eye. "No," Daz said. He touched the small wooden box on the table. Inside were his parents' wedding rings. They had died 3 months ago, just weeks apart. His father's last words stuck with him. "You know how to make money, son. Now learn how people live." Day made a decision. He would live like a normal person. At least for a while. No fancy clothes. No AI assistants. No one knowing who he was. He wanted to see how people behaved when they didn't know he was rich. "Begin Project Real Life," he told his eye. "Transfer ownership of Building 12 to my shell company 3. Then rent me apartment 303 under the name Jin Park." The AI confirmed the changes. By morning, billionaire Da Kim would disappear, and Jin Park, a regular office worker, would be born. Marcus Webb carefully packed his research tablet. After 5 years studying alien plants on Proxima Centauri, he was back in human space. His work could change how humans grew food on space colonies. Plants that could clean air better. Fruits that had more vitamins. Seeds that could grow in almost no soil. "Terminal Station, Seoul Horizon," announced the transport eye. "Please prepare for docking." Marcus grabbed his 2 bags. He didn't own much, just clothes, research equipment, and a few books. He had saved most of his research mission money, but he liked living simply. His parents had taught him that showing off wealth just made people treat you differently. As the transport docked, Marcus checked the apartment listing again. It looked perfect. Building 12, not too expensive, close to the research lab where he would work. The landlord, Han Sung, had seemed friendly in their messages. Marcus had sent his perfect rental history, his job offer from Seoul Horizon Research Center, and his credit score. Han had almost immediately approved him to see the apartment. The station was busy with people. Marcus noticed he was one of the few black people around. Seoul Horizon had been built by a Korean company and named after Earth's soul. Most people who lived here were Korean or of Korean descent. Marcus didn't mind. He had lived in many places where he looked different from others. He found the address and pressed the call button. "Hello. Who is this?" A voice answered in Korean. "Hello, Mr. Han. This is Marcus Webb. I'm here to see the apartment. We have an appointment at 2 o'clock. A long silence followed. "Mr. Webb," Han finally said in English. "I thought, your application. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," Marcus said. "I sent my application yesterday. You approved it this morning." Another long pause. "Yes, but the apartment might not be available now. I need to check something." Han opened the door. He was a short man in his 50s with graying hair and expensive clothes. His eyes widened when he saw Marcus, and his smile disappeared. "There is a problem with the apartment," Han said quickly. "The air system is broken." "That's okay," Marcus said. "I can still look at it." No. Very dangerous. No air. Come back next week." Han started to close the door, but Marcus put his hand out. "I only have temporary housing for 3 days," Marcus explained. "I need to find a place quickly. If this one doesn't work, can you recommend another?" Han looked uncomfortable. "All my units are full. Very full. Try another building." As Han shut the door, Marcus heard him mutter something in Korean that didn't sound friendly. Marcus sighed and picked up his bags. This wasn't the first time this had happened. He'd try another building, though his options were limited with his start date at the lab so close. Jin Park, who was really Da Kim, had watched the whole thing from the lobby. He had been bringing in groceries when he saw the landlord's reaction to the black man at the door. Jin had lived in Building 12 for 3 weeks now, and he was learning a lot about how Han Sung ran things. Han treated rich-looking people very well. He treated ordinary-looking Koreans okay. He treated everyone else badly. Jin had seen Han turn away a family with children last week, saying the building didn't allow kids. But Jin knew that wasn't true. There were at least 4 families with children in the building. Jin waited until the black man was halfway down the street before approaching him. "Excuse me," Jin called out. "I couldn't help but overhear. You're looking for an apartment." The man turned around. "Yes, but apparently there's an air problem in this building." Jin smiled. "That's strange. I live there, and my air is working fine. I'm Jin Park. Marcus Webb. Nice to meet you." "The landlord, Mr. Han. He sometimes says things that aren't true," Jin explained. "There are empty apartments in our building. I know because I helped the last tenant move out of 507 just yesterday." Marcus shook his head. "I think the problem isn't the apartment. It's me." "Because you're black?" Jin asked directly. "It wouldn't be the first time," Marcus said with a tired smile. "I'll find something else." "No, wait," Jin said. "Let me help. Han Sung respects me because I work for a big tech company. If I recommend you, he'll have to listen." Marcus looked doubtful. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." "Because it's wrong what he's doing," Jin said simply. "And because I know how it feels when people judge you without knowing you." This was true. As Da Kim, people only saw his money. They never saw him. That's why he was living as Jin Park now. "Let me carry one of your bags," Jin offered. "We'll go talk to Han together." Han Sung was not happy to see Jin and Marcus at his door again. "Mr. Park, what is this about?" he asked in Korean. "Mr. Han, this is my colleague Dr. Marcus Webb," Jin replied in Korean. "He's a very important scientist who will be working at the research center. I promised my boss I would help him find a good apartment." Han looked nervous. "But the problems with the unit." "What problems?" Jin asked innocently. "You told me yesterday that 507 was ready for new tenants." Han's eyes darted between Jin and Marcus. "There are special requirements for tenants in this building." "Yes, I know," Jin nodded. "Good income, good references, no criminal history. Dr. Webb has all those things. I've seen his application." Han was trapped. Jin worked for a company that supplied parts to many businesses in Seoul Horizon. Making Jin angry could be bad for Han. "Perhaps I can show the apartment," Han said reluctantly. The apartment was beautiful. It had large windows with views of the colony's central garden dome. The kitchen was modern. The bedroom was spacious. "It's perfect," Marcus said. "I'll take it." Han forced a smile. "There is still paperwork, and the deposit is very high." "How high?" Marcus asked. 10,000 credits, Han said, naming a price 3 times the normal amount. Marcus didn't blink. "That's fine. I can transfer the funds now." Han looked disappointed that his tactic didn't work. "The building has many rules. Very strict rules." "I follow rules very well," Marcus said calmly. "Is there anything else?" Han had run out of excuses. With Jin watching, he reluctantly processed Marcus's application. "You can move in tomorrow," Han said coldly. As they left the office, Marcus turned to Jin. "Thank you. I don't know why you helped me, but I appreciate it." Jin smiled. "Everyone deserves a fair chance. Besides, now we're neighbors. Would you like to get dinner? I know a good place nearby." As they walked to the restaurant, Jin thought about how his experiment in living as a regular person was already teaching him important things. He had seen how someone like Han treated people when he thought they had no power, and he had seen how someone like Marcus handled unfairness with dignity. Jin decided then that he would keep an eye on Han Sung. As the secret owner of the building, he could do more than just help one tenant. But for now, he would simply be Jin Park, Marcus's new friend and neighbor in Building 12 of Seoul Horizon Colony. Marcus moved into apartment 507 the next day. His few belongings barely filled the space, but he didn't mind. The large desk by the window was perfect for his research work. He set up his plant samples and computer, ready to start his new job at the research center. That evening, someone knocked on his door. It was Jin with a small plant in a pot. "A welcome gift," Jin said, handing it to Marcus. "It's a traditional Korean houseplant. They say it brings good luck." "Thank you," Marcus said, touched by the kind gesture. "Would you like to come in for some tea?" Over tea, Marcus told Jin about his work. He explained how the plant he studied could help grow food in space colonies with little soil or water. "That's amazing," Jin said, truly impressed. As Da Kim, he had funded such research but never really understood it. "Your work could help feed millions of people." "That's the hope," Marcus said. "What about you? You mentioned you work for a tech company." Jin had prepared for this question. "I work in the testing department for Kim Systems. We test smart home devices before they go to market." "Kim Systems, isn't that the company owned by that billionaire? What's his name?" "Da Kim," Jin said, feeling strange saying his own name. "But I've never met him. I'm just a regular employee." They talked late into the night. Jin was surprised how easy it was to talk to Marcus. Most people Jin met as Da Kim only wanted something from him, but Marcus just wanted to share ideas and listen. The problems began the next morning. Marcus woke up shivering. The room temperature had dropped to near freezing. He called Han Sung. "Mr. Han, the heating system in my apartment isn't working." "Very strange," Han said, not sounding surprised. "Maybe there is a problem with your unit settings. I will check. Tomorrow. But it's freezing now. Many appointments today. Very busy. No time," Han said, and hung up. Marcus put on extra clothes and went to work. When he returned that evening, the apartment was still cold. He called Han again, but there was no answer. There was another knock at the door. It was Jin. "You look cold," Jin said. "Is your heating not working?" "No, and Han won't fix it until tomorrow, supposedly." Jin frowned. "That's not right. Let me look at it." Jin knew exactly how the system worked. After all, his company had designed it. He opened the maintenance panel and quickly found the problem. "Someone turned off your heat manually," Jin said, showing Marcus the switch that had been flipped. This wasn't an accident. Jin turned the heat back on, and warm air began to flow. "Thank you," Marcus said. "I think Han may be behind this." "I wouldn't be surprised," Jin replied. "But don't worry. If anything else happens, let me know." Over the next 2 weeks, strange things kept happening in Marcus's apartment. The water stopped working for hours at a time. Loud maintenance work happened outside his door early in the morning. His door code was changed without notice. The building AI stopped accepting his food delivery orders. Each time, Marcus reported the problem to Han. Each time, Han made excuses or took days to fix simple issues. One evening, Marcus found a notice on his door. It listed new building rules. 1. No working from home. 2. No visitors after 7:00 p.m. 3. No cooking foods with strong odors. 4. Mandatory quiet hours from 6:00 p.m. to 8:00 a.m. Marcus knew these rules targeted him directly. He often worked from home. He and Jin usually met in the evenings, and Han had complained about the strange smell when Marcus cooked traditional Nigerian dishes his mother had taught him. When Marcus showed Jin the new rules, Jin was angry. "He can't do this," Jin said. "These rules don't apply to anyone else in the building. The Korean family in 302 has loud dinner parties all the time. No one says anything to them." "It's okay," Marcus said calmly. "I've dealt with people like Han before. Getting angry won't help." Jin admired Marcus's patience but felt frustrated. As the actual owner of the building, he could stop Han immediately. But that would mean revealing his true identity as Da Kim. He wasn't ready to do that yet. He wanted to understand the situation fully first. Instead, Jin installed small cameras in the hallway near Marcus's apartment. If Han was behind the harassment, Jin would catch him. A few days later, Marcus received his first utility bill. It was 3 times higher than normal. "This can't be right," Marcus said, showing the bill to Jin. "It says I used enough water for 20 people." Jin looked at the bill. "This is definitely wrong. Let's talk to Han." They found Han in his office. When Han saw Marcus, his friendly smile disappeared. "Mr. Han, there's a problem with my bill," Marcus explained. "It says I used 3,000 gallons of water last week." Han shrugged. "Maybe you take very long showers." "No one uses this much water," Jin argued. "The meter must be broken." "Meters don't lie," Han said. "Bill must be paid by tomorrow, or there will be a late fee." As they left the office, Jin whispered to Marcus, "Don't pay it yet. I'll look into this." That night, Jin checked the footage from his hidden cameras. It showed Han entering Marcus's apartment when Marcus was at work. Han spent 10 minutes inside, then left with a smug look on his face. Jin checked Marcus's water meter remotely. Han had tampered with it, setting it to count at triple the normal rate. Meanwhile, Han was having problems of his own. He received a message from his building investor, a company called Horizon Holdings. "Building occupancy rates too low," the message read. "Profits down 15% from last quarter. Improve numbers within 30 days or funding will be reduced." Han panicked. He needed to fill more apartments and raise more money. In his mind, the biggest problem was Marcus. Han believed other Korean tenants didn't want to live near a black man. "If I can get rid of him, I can fill 3 more units," Han told himself. What Han didn't know was that Horizon Holdings was actually owned by Da Kim, and Dae, living as Jin, was watching Han's every move. One morning, Marcus found water leaking from his ceiling. It dripped onto his desk, damaging some of his research materials. He called Han immediately. "There's water coming from my ceiling. My research is getting wet." "Not an emergency," Han said. "I will check next week." "Next week? But my work is being ruined now." "Not my problem," Han said, and hung up. Marcus quickly moved his research materials. Some papers were already soaked, representing weeks of work. He felt angry for the first time since moving in. Jin arrived a few minutes later. "I heard about the leak. Are you okay?" "My research," Marcus said, showing the wet papers. "Some of this can't be replaced." Jin looked at the ceiling. "This isn't an accident. The water pipe has been loosened deliberately." Jin helped Marcus save what research they could. Then he fixed the pipe himself. "Thank you," Marcus said. "I don't know what I'd do without your help." Jin made a decision. Han has gone too far. "I think it's time we did something about him." "What can we do?" Marcus asked. "He owns the building." Jin smiled. "Actually, he doesn't, and I think it's time he learned that lesson." Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I haven't been completely honest with you," Jin said. "I'm not just a tech worker. I'm—" Before Jin could finish, they heard a loud knock. Han stood at the door with 2 security officers. "Mr. Webb," Han said with a cold smile, "you have violated your lease in multiple ways. These officers will escort you out. You have 1 hour to pack your things." Marcus looked shocked. "What violations? I followed all the rules, even your new ones." Han handed Marcus a document. "Noise complaints, water damage, unauthorized modifications to apartment systems, all documented here." The evidence was clearly fake. Jin could see that Han had created false reports and possibly bribed the security officers. "This is illegal," Jin said. "You can't evict someone without proper cause or notice." "Stay out of this, Mr. Park," Han warned, "or you might find your own lease in jeopardy." Jin looked at Marcus, then at Han. The moment to reveal his true identity had arrived sooner than expected. Actually, Jin said, reaching for his phone, I think we need to have a meeting. A very important meeting. A meeting? Han laughed. There is nothing to discuss. Mr. Webb has broken the rules. He must leave. Jin held up his phone. I just scheduled an emergency meeting with the real owner of this building. We will all attend. Now. Han's face turned red. I am the owner. Who do you think you are? Jin stayed calm. The meeting room on the top floor. 10 minutes. The owner will be there. The security officers looked confused. One of them whispered something to Han, who seemed suddenly unsure. Fine, Han finally said. 10 minutes, but then Mr. Webb leaves. After Han and the officers walked away, Marcus turned to Jin. What are you doing? There is no owner coming. Jin smiled. Yes, there is. But I need to change first. Meet me on the top floor in 10 minutes. Marcus arrived at the meeting room exactly 10 minutes later. Han and the security officers were already there, looking impatient. The room had a large table and windows showing the entire colony. This is a waste of time, Han said. No one is coming. Just then, the door opened. A man in an expensive business suit walked in. It took Marcus a moment to recognize Jin. Gone were the casual clothes and simple manner. This Jin stood tall, with confidence and power. Mr. Han, Jin said coldly. Please sit down. Han stared in confusion. Mr. Park, what is this? My name is not Jin Park, he said, placing his ID card on the table. My name is Da Kim. Han's face went pale. Da Kim. The Da Kim. Owner of Kim Systems. The same, Da said. And also the owner of Horizon Holdings, which owns this building. The security officers looked at each other nervously. Han collapsed into a chair. Impossible, Han whispered. I've been living in this building for weeks, watching how you manage my property, Da continued. I've seen how you treat people differently based on their race. I've documented everything. Da placed a tablet on the table. It showed video clips of Han entering Marcus's apartment, turning off the heat, tampering with the water meter, and loosening the water pipe. You have been harassing Dr. Webb since he moved in, Da said. Why? Han looked trapped. He glanced at the security officers, then at Marcus. He doesn't belong here, Han finally said. This is a Korean building. Having him here makes other tenants uncomfortable. Does it? Da asked. Or is it just you who is uncomfortable? Han didn't answer. Da turned to the security officers. You are both fired. Please leave your badges at the front desk. The men quickly left the room. Now only Da, Marcus, and Han remained. I don't understand, Marcus said. You're really Da Kim, the billionaire. Da nodded. I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you. After my parents died, I wanted to live like a regular person. I wanted to see how people behaved when they didn't know I was rich or powerful. And you saw the worst of people, Marcus said, looking at Han. I also saw the best, Da replied, smiling at Marcus. I saw how you handled unfairness with dignity, how you focused on your important work despite the harassment. Han stood up suddenly. This is all a misunderstanding. I never meant. Sit down, Da ordered. Han immediately sat. Your actions were recorded. There is no misunderstanding. Dad pushed another tablet toward Han. On the screen was a document. This is a confession, Dad explained. It details how you discriminated against Dr. Webb and other potential tenants, how you created fake rules and charges, how you damaged property to force him out. You want me to sign this? Han asked in disbelief. I'll be ruined. You have two choices, Da said. Sign this and face the consequences of your actions, or don't sign, and I will press criminal charges for property damage, fraud, and civil rights violations. Han stared at the tablet for a long moment. Then, with a shaking hand, he signed it. What happens now? Han asked quietly. You're fired, effective immediately, Da said. You will pay for all damages to Dr. Webb's property and research, and you will donate 20% of your earnings from this building over the past year to the Colony Diversity Initiative. Han nodded weakly. One more thing, Dai added. You will attend a 6-month cultural sensitivity program. If you complete it successfully, I might consider letting you work in property management again, but never for one of my companies. Han left the room without another word. Marcus and Dai were alone. I still can't believe it, Marcus said. All this time, you were Dai Kim. Please, just call me Dad, he said. Jin Park doesn't exist, but our friendship is real. You're the first real friend I've made in years. The next day, news spread quickly through the building. Han Sung was gone. The famous Dad Kim had been living among them in disguise. And most shocking of all, Dai had stood up for a black tenant against discrimination. Day called a meeting for all building residents. Over 50 people squeezed into the community room. For the past month, I've been living here as Jin Park, Day told them. I wanted to see how this building was really run. What I found was disappointing. He explained how Han had discriminated against certain tenants and potential renters, how rules were applied unfairly, how maintenance was neglected. This stops today, Day said firmly. Seoul Horizon was built to be a home for everyone, not just Koreans. The stars don't care about our skin color or where we were born. If humanity is going to succeed in space, we must leave our prejudices behind on Earth. Many residents nodded in agreement. Some looked ashamed. I am appointing Ms. Yuna Lee as the new building manager, Da continued, gesturing to a woman in the front row. She has worked in property management for 15 years and has an excellent reputation for fairness. After the meeting, several residents approached Marcus to apologize. They hadn't known about Han's actions, they said. Some invited Marcus to dinner or offered to help replace his damaged research materials. Marcus was touched by their kindness, but still felt strange about everything that had happened. That evening, Day visited Marcus's apartment. The water damage had been repaired, and the heating worked perfectly. How are you doing? Day asked. Better, Marcus said. It's amazing how friendly everyone is now that they know the building owner stood up for me. I'm sorry I didn't reveal myself sooner, Day said. I wanted to understand the full situation first. I understand, Marcus replied. But I have to ask, will you go back to being just Dai Kim now, the famous billionaire? Day looked out the window at the colony below. I don't know. Being Jin Park was freeing. For the first time in years, people talked to me, not my money. Except Han, Marcus pointed out. Yes, except Han, Dai agreed. His behavior showed me that discrimination still exists, even in space. We've brought our old problems with us to the stars. They sat in silence for a moment. Your research, Dai said suddenly. The plants that can grow in harsh environments. That could help people live better lives in space colonies. That's the goal, Marcus said. Why? I want to fund your research, Dai said. Not just your current project, but a whole department. We could call it the Webb Institute for Xenobotany. Marcus was stunned. That's incredibly generous. But why? Because your work matters, Dai said simply. And because I want to make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else in Seoul Horizon. Day stood up and walked to the door. Think about it. We can discuss details tomorrow. As Dai reached for the door handle, Marcus called out, Dai. Our friendship. Was any of it real? Day turned back with a genuine smile. All of it was real. And I hope it will continue to be, whether I'm Jin Park or Dai Kim. After Day left, Marcus looked at the small plant Jin had given him when he first moved in. It was still alive, despite all the problems with the apartment. Like their friendship, it had survived the challenges. Marcus smiled. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, and perhaps a chance to change Seoul Horizon for the better. 6 months passed quickly in Seoul Horizon Colony. Spring arrived in the artificial environment. with cherry trees blooming in the central dome. The colony felt different now, more welcoming, more diverse. Marcus Webb stood at the front of a large room filled with people. Behind him was a sign that read Webb Institute for Xenobotany, Grand Opening. Marcus wore a simple suit, but he still felt a bit uncomfortable with all the attention. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began. "6 months ago, I was just a researcher with some interesting plant samples. Today, thanks to Da Kim, we have this amazing facility." The crowd applauded. Day sat in the front row, smiling proudly. "Our work here will help colonies grow food more efficiently," Marcus continued. "The plants we're developing can grow with 70% less water and 50% less soil than Earth plants. They clean the air better too." Marcus showed slides of his latest work: plants with blue leaves that could absorb more light, fruits that grew 3 times faster than normal, seeds that could grow in almost no soil. "This research will help not just Sewell Horizon, but all human colonies in space," Marcus concluded. "Thank you." After the presentation, people gathered around food tables. Marcus noticed someone unexpected standing alone in a corner. It was Han Sung, the former landlord. He looked different. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced by a simple uniform with community services written on it. Marcus walked over to him. "Mr. Han, I didn't expect to see you here." Han looked nervous. "Dr. Webb, congratulations on your institute." An awkward silence followed. Then Han spoke again. I want to apologize," he said quietly. "What I did to you was wrong. Very wrong." Marcus was surprised. "Thank you for saying that. The sensitivity program Mr. Kim sent me to. It changed how I think," Han continued. "I never realized how my actions hurt people." "What are you doing now?" Marcus asked. "I work in community services," Han explained. "I help new arrivals find housing, no matter where they're from. It's part of my rehabilitation." Before Marcus could respond, Dai joined them. "Han," Dai nodded. "How is the program going?" "Very well, Mr. Kim," Han replied. "I have completed 5 months. 1 more to go." "And your community service hours?" "I have helped 20 families find homes," Han said with a hint of pride, "including 3 Earth African families and 5 mixed culture couples." Day seemed pleased. "Good. Keep it up." As Han walked away, Marcus turned to Dai. "Do you really think he's changed?" "People can surprise you," Dai said. "The program reports say he's genuinely trying." The old Han would have quit after the first week. Later that evening, Dai and Marcus sat in Dai's penthouse. The view of the colony was spectacular from up high. "So," Dai said, pouring tea for them both, "your institute is officially open. How does it feel?" "Honestly, a little scary," Marcus admitted. "I'm a researcher, not a leader." "You'll be great," Dai assured him. "You already have 15 people working for you, and applications from 50 more." Marcus nodded. "It's all happening so fast. 6 months ago, I was just trying to find an apartment." They both laughed at how much had changed. "What about you?" Marcus asked. "Are you going back to being just Dai Kim now?" "I've been thinking about that," Dai said. "Being Jin Park taught me a lot. I saw things I would never have seen as Da Kim." Day walked to his desk and picked up a tablet. "I've started a new project. I'm calling it the Horizon Foundation." "What will it do?" Marcus asked. "Help make sure space colonies are fair places for everyone," Dad explained. "We'll fund scholarships for students from Earth who couldn't otherwise afford to live in space. We'll create guidelines for inclusive housing. We'll back research like yours that helps everyone live better in space." "That sounds amazing," Marcus said. "There's more," Dad continued. "I want to establish a human rights office in every major colony. People like Han exist everywhere. There needs to be a place where people can report discrimination." "And you want me to help with this?" Marcus guessed. "I need your perspective," Daz said. "My experience as Jin Park showed me problems exist, but your experience living with those problems your whole life is valuable. Marcus thought about it. I'll help however I can, but my focus needs to stay on my research. Of course, Di agreed. Speaking of research, there's something I want to show you. They took Marcus to a part of the colony he had never seen before. They entered a massive dome, much larger than the central garden. Inside was an artificial lake surrounded by trees and plants. "What is this place?" Marcus asked in amazement. "The future," Dad said simply. "This is Dome 5. It's been sealed off for years because we couldn't get a proper ecosystem working." The dome was beautiful, but clearly struggling. Many plants looked yellow or brown. The water level in the lake was low. "I want to use your research here," Dad explained. "Your plants could transform this dome into a fully functioning ecosystem. We could create a real Earth-like environment in space." Marcus walked around, his mind racing with possibilities. We could plant the water-filtering species along the lake edge. The deep root varieties could help hold the soil together. And the fast-growing trees could provide more oxygen. Day smiled, seeing Marcus's excitement. "So you'll take on this challenge?" "Absolutely," Marcus replied without hesitation. "This could be the model for terraforming someday. What we learn here might help us build better colonies on Mars or beyond." 2 weeks later, Marcus held a meeting with his research team in Dome 5. 20 scientists from 12 different Earth countries listened as he explained the project. "This is more than just making a pretty park," Marcus told them. "What we learn here could help humanity survive as we move further into space." Among the team was a young Korean woman named Mina. She had grown up in Seoul Horizon, but had never been allowed inside Dome 5. "Dr. Webb," Mina said after the meeting, "thank you for including me in this project. Many people said a Korean woman couldn't be a good botanist." "Your work speaks for itself," Marcus replied. "Your root system design is exactly what we need for this project." As they walked through the dome planning where to plant the first test crops, Mina asked, "Is it true you were almost evicted because of discrimination?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, but things worked out in the end." "Because your friend turned out to be Da Kim," Mina said with a smile. "Like a movie." "Real life is rarely like movies," Marcus said. "Most people facing discrimination don't have billionaire friends to help them." "That's why the new Human Rights Office is so important," Mina replied. 3 of my friends have already used it to report housing problems." Marcus felt proud to hear this. The changes were already helping people. 1 year after Marcus first arrived at Seoul Horizon, the colony held a festival celebrating Earth cultures. All 15 domes were open to everyone. Food, music, art, and traditions from around the world filled the colony. In the central square, Da gave a short speech. "When humans first looked at the stars, we saw our future. But when we began living among those stars, we brought our old problems with us. Today, Seoul Horizon takes another step toward leaving those problems behind." He unveiled a new sign at the colony entrance. It read, "Seoul Horizon, where humanity's best self reaches for the stars." After the ceremony, Day found Marcus in Dome 5, which was now thriving with vibrant plants and clear water. "Your work is amazing," Day said, looking at the transformed dome. "In just a year, you've created a real piece of Earth in space." "Not just Earth," Marcus corrected him. "Something better than Earth. Plants from different continents growing together. Species that would never meet on Earth working together here. It's like the people in this colony now, diverse but united." As they walked through the lush landscape, they passed Han Sung leading a tour group of new arrivals. He was pointing out features of the dome and explaining how to apply for housing. "Everyone is welcome in Seoul Horizon," they heard Han say to the mixed group of visitors. "We have homes for all kinds of families and people here." Day and Marcus looked at each other and smiled. The colony had changed. Han had changed. They had all changed. "So," Day said as they reached the edge of the lake, "what's next for Dr. Marcus Webb?" Marcus looked up at the stars visible through the clear dome ceiling. Keep growing things. Keep making space more livable for everyone. One plant at a time, and one person at a time, Di added, thinking of their unlikely friendship and all that had come from it. Together, they watched the artificial sunset light up the dome in brilliant colors, painting a future where humanity's journey to the stars brought out the best in everyone.